You called the police on a man for draining his pool. You've sent 47 emails to various city departments. You somehow got the county water inspector to drive out here, and he's now threatening to fine the HOA for wasting his time. Bob rubbed his forehead. The mayor's office called me because you filed a formal complaint claiming Mike was stealing municipal water. But the 1987 water rights documentation clearly states, Karen, that document refers to rainwater collection and storm drainage. It has nothing to do with privately owned pool water. Bob opened a file folder. I've received complaints from 12 neighbors about your shouting this morning. 3 noise violations for your megaphone announcement at lunch, and Mike is now threatening to sue both you and the HOA for harassment. Karen's world tilted slightly. Megaphone announcement. You stood in your front yard with a battery-powered megaphone and informed the entire neighborhood that Mike was committing water crimes against humanity. The memory came rushing back. In her righteous fury, she may have gotten slightly carried away with her public awareness campaign. I was exercising my First Amendment right to inform my neighbors about environmental threats. Karen, you accused him of being worse than the corporations that poisoned Flint's water supply. Bob's tone grew stern. That's not community advocacy. That's defamation. Karen left Bob's office with a formal reprimand letter and a direct order to cease all harassment of Mike Patterson. But as she drove home through the winding streets of Willowbrook Estates, her anger crystallized into something more dangerous: strategic determination. If the HOA wouldn't protect their community, she would. That evening, Karen began phase 2 of her campaign. She created a neighborhood Facebook group called Willowbrook Environmental Watch and posted a carefully worded message about concerning water management practices and residents who prioritize convenience over conservation. Within 2 hours, she had 37 members and a heated discussion thread with over 200 comments. Her neighbor Patricia Chen commented, "I saw all those police cars this morning. What happened?" Karen responded, "Some people believe they have the right to waste thousands of gallons of treated water without considering the environmental impact on our community. I'm simply advocating for responsible resource management." But Mike Patterson's wife, Sarah, joined the group and posted a different perspective. "Hi everyone. We're the family with the concerning water management. We had a pool liner failure and are following standard repair protocols. We called 3 companies and all recommended draining and repairing. We're also planning to donate the replacement water to the community garden once repairs are complete." The comment thread exploded. Neighbors began taking sides, sharing their own pool maintenance stories, and debating everything from water rights to property law. Karen watched her carefully crafted narrative spiral into chaos as reasonable voices began questioning her version of events. By midnight, the discussion had attracted the attention of a local news blogger who specialized in suburban drama stories. Karen woke up to find her phone buzzing with notifications and a friend request from someone named Jennifer Walsh, Channel 7 community correspondent. The message read, "Hi Karen, I'd love to interview you about your environmental advocacy regarding neighborhood water usage. This sounds like a fascinating David versus Goliath story about community activism versus individual property rights. Would you be available for a brief on-camera interview this afternoon?" Karen's heart soared. Finally, someone with real media credentials understood the importance of her cause. She immediately accepted the interview request and spent the morning preparing talking points about environmental stewardship, community responsibility, and the dangers of unchecked resource consumption. She had no idea that Jennifer Walsh specialized in humorous viral neighborhood feed segments, or that Mike Patterson had also agreed to be interviewed. As Karen applied her makeup and selected her most authoritative blazer, she was already planning her next move. If media attention didn't resolve this crisis, she would take her case directly to the city council. The war for Willowbrook's water rights was just beginning. The Channel 7 news van arrived at 3 p.m., drawing curious neighbors from their houses like moths to a flame. Karen had spent 2 hours perfecting her appearance and practicing her key talking points about community water stewardship and environmental responsibility. "I'm here to speak for those who can't defend themselves," she told Jennifer Walsh. gesturing toward the storm drain, where Mike's pool water had disappeared that morning. Our groundwater, our environment, our shared resources. The interview lasted 15 minutes. Karen felt confident. She presented a compelling case for community accountability and environmental protection. Jennifer seemed particularly interested in Karen's documentation efforts and asked several questions about the 1987 water rights document. "And you believe this gives the community legal claim to Mr. Patterson's pool water?" Jennifer asked with professional neutrality. "Absolutely," Karen replied firmly. "Water is a shared resource. We all have a responsibility to protect and conserve it for future generations." The segment aired during the evening news with the headline, "Local Woman Claims Neighbor's Pool Water Belongs to Community." Karen watched in growing horror as the story unfolded on screen. They'd edited her most passionate statements together, making her sound increasingly unhinged. Her dramatic gestures toward the storm drain looked theatrical and absurd. Worst of all, they'd interviewed Mike immediately after her, and his calm, reasonable explanation of the necessary pool repair made her claims seem completely irrational. The story went viral overnight. Karen's phone exploded with notifications as the video spread across social media platforms with hashtags like #Poolgate, #WaterKaren, and #HOADrama. Memes featuring her image began appearing with captions about claiming ownership of rain, snow, and neighbors' drinking water. By morning, Karen had received dozens of friend requests from people wanting to mock her, 3 interview requests from comedy podcasts, and a formal letter from Mike Patterson's lawyer demanding she cease all harassment and publicly retract her water ownership claims. The HOA emergency meeting was scheduled for that evening. As Karen sat in her command center dining room, surrounded by her now ridiculous legal research, she realized her crusade had transformed her from a concerned community advocate into a national laughingstock. But the worst part wasn't the mockery or the legal threats. It was the growing suspicion that Mike Patterson had been completely reasonable from the beginning, and she had created this entire crisis out of her own need to be right, to be important, to be the defender of standards in a world she felt was losing them. Her phone buzzed with another notification. The Willowbrook Environmental Watch Facebook group now had 847 members, but the latest posts weren't supporting her cause. They were neighbors sharing stories about her previous complaints. The time she demanded someone's garden gnomes be removed for aesthetic violations, her campaign against holiday decorations being displayed prematurely, her formal protests about the color of the Johnsons' new mailbox. Karen stared at her reflection in her laptop screen and wondered when she'd become the villain in her own story. And more unsettling still, she couldn't figure out how to stop being one. The HOO meeting was in 6 hours, and she still believed she was right about something. She just couldn't remember what it was anymore. Karen Hutchinson stood on her pristine lawn in her terry cloth robe at 6:47 am, clutching her phone like a weapon as she watched her neighbor's pool water cascade down the storm drain. The sound of rushing water had jolted her from sleep, and now she was witnessing what she could only describe as an environmental catastrophe happening right next door. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she shrieked into her phone, her voice carrying across the entire Willowbrook Estate subdivision. "I'm calling the police, the HOA, and probably the EPA." Her neighbor, Mike Patterson, emerged from his backyard wearing swim trunks and a confused expression. "Karen, it's not even 7 in the morning. What's wrong now?" "What's wrong?" Karen's voice climbed an octave. "You're draining your entire pool without proper permits. That's thousands of gallons of treated water going straight into our storm system, contaminating our groundwater reserves." She waved her copy of the HOA handbook like a battle flag. Section 4.2b clearly states that any major water discharge requires written approval from the Homeowners Association Environmental Committee. Mike rubbed his temples. "Karen, I'm draining it because I found a crack in the liner. I called 3 different repair companies, and they all said the same thing: drain it, fix it, refill it." "Did you get environmental impact assessments, water usage projections, and neighborhood notification form?" Karen was now pacing her property line, her fuzzy slippers making squeaking sounds on the wet pavement. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers stood in Mike's driveway while Karen presented them with a thick manila folder. "Officers, I've documented 17 separate HOA violations occurring simultaneously. Unauthorized water discharge, failure to obtain proper permits, noise disturbance during quiet hours, and potential environmental hazardous waste disposal." Officer Rodriguez exchanged a look with his partner. "Ma'am, is this about a man draining his own pool? It's about the systematic destruction of our community's carefully maintained environmental standards." Karen's eyes blazed with righteous fury. "And technically, according to our water rights documentation from 1987, any water that falls within the boundaries of Willowbrook Estates becomes part of our collective water table management system." Mike's jaw dropped. "Karen, are you seriously claiming ownership of the water in my pool?" Karen lifted her chin defiantly. "I'm claiming that water belongs to all of us, and you can't just waste it like some kind of water baron." She turned to the officers. "I demand you arrest him for theft of community resources and environmental vandalism." The officers looked at each other again. This was going to be a very long morning. By noon, Karen had transformed her dining room into a command center. Legal documents covered every surface. Her laptop displayed multiple browser tabs with water law statutes, and her printer had been running nonstop for 3 hours. She'd already called the County Water Authority, the State Environmental Protection Agency, and left 17 messages with various lawyers specializing in property rights. "Mom, you need to eat something," her daughter Jessica said, setting a sandwich beside a stack of property surveys. "You've been at this for 6 hours." "I can't eat when our entire neighborhood is under attack," Karen muttered, highlighting sections of a 1994 court case about shared water resources. "Mike Patterson thinks he can just drain thousands of gallons of perfectly good water because of some tiny crack. In my day, we fixed things instead of wastefully discarding them." Her phone buzzed with a text from HOA President Bob Williams. "Karen, we need to talk. My office, 2 p.m. Karen's heart raced. Finally, someone in authority was taking this seriously. She spent the next hour preparing a presentation complete with charts, graphs, and a PowerPoint she titled "The Great Pool Water Heist: A Community Under Siege." At precisely 2:00 p.m., Karen marched into Bob's home office carrying 3 binders, a poster board, and a briefcase. "Bob, thank goodness you called this emergency meeting. I've prepared comprehensive documentation proving that Mike's actions constitute—" "Karen, sit down." Bob's voice was tired. "We need to discuss your behavior today." Karen's confidence faltered slightly. "My behavior? I'm protecting our community.